Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Wednesday, February 26th. We're going to do today's play of the day, a quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up picking up a nice, easy winner with Jason Tatum over 25.5 points, which we ended up getting on FanDuel at minus 114. Really wasn't much of a sweat. Tatum only had 10 points going into the half, which was a bit concerning. But at the end of the day, he only attempted 7 shots in the first half, and then he just decided to go off in the entire second half. He had 20, I believe it was, what do you have? He had 20 points by the end of the third. I think. I don't even remember. I know that he had 26 points in the second half. He's pretty much unstoppable right now, and Portland didn't have the manpower to actually take care of him. I mentioned how Ariza and Melo would be guarding him, and yeah, that didn't exactly work too well. Overall, Tatum's just kicked it into superstar gear, and people just haven't noticed. A lot of that to do with the fact that Kemba is still out, and Kemba would be taking a decent amount of shots away from him. But either or, Celtics ended up winning easily. Tatum ended up going over easily. It was a pretty easy day, but either we're going to be looking for another play of the day winner. But before we get into today's play of the day, I have an announcement to make. I know some of you might be aware that I took over for Scott Steen today on the Winners and Winers page. I'm also going to be taking over tomorrow as well as Saturday. So if you want more picks by me, check out the Winners and Winers page over the next couple of days. A couple of reasons for that, mostly. But, I mentioned in the Winners and Winers video, Scott Steen's father unfortunately passed away, so he's unable to do the videos for the next couple of days. Sorry for their loss once again. But either or, I'm filling in there, so if you want to see some extra picks, you can check out that channel. But for today's play of the day, it's going to be on a matchup between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Miami Heat, and I feel like all of you pretty much know where I'm going with this one. It will be on the over 232.5. Between the Timberwolves and the Heat, and we like that line, and it's available at DraftKings at minus 108, and that will be the play of the day. Now, I'm trying to figure out how to make this not sound repetitive from the video I made 2 days ago, but there's really no way to do that. The Timberwolves I mentioned before are just absolutely terrible defensively. This team can't stop a nosebleed. They gave up 140 plus again to the Mavericks in their last game. This team just stinks defensively. They have 139, I should say, in their last game. This team can't stop anybody. Miami offensively is still very talented with Butler, Adebayo. You still have Dragic off the bench. You still have Robinson, who's a good three-point shooter. Nunn, who's a very solid shooter. I just think the Heat are going to score 130 again. The Timberwolves have just been content with trying to play as fast as possible and just getting their asses kicked as much as possible. You have Naz Reid, who's playing the center. He can shoot. You have Hernan Gomez playing the power forward. He can shoot. Kogi can shoot. Malik Beasley can shoot. Russell can shoot. The whole team's just a bunch of shooters, and they play no defense. I think Miami should be able to put together a nice performance offensively. You saw them defensively choke against the Cavaliers in their last game as they ended up giving up 125 points in overtime. They've scored at least 119 points in each of their last 3 games, so Miami offensively has played well lately, whereas the Timberwolves defensively has been an absolute disaster. Looking through the actual numbers for the Timberwolves, let me just make sure that I got this number right. The Timberwolves have gone over 240 points in 6 of their last 7 games, and the last game against the Mavericks totaled 262. I think this total is just way too low. I think this line should be somewhere around 240. Until I actually see the Timberwolves go under 240 in one of their games, I'm going to blindly bet the over. And I think at 233, I think this line's an absolute joke. Is it possible this line loses? Yes, but I think that based on the recent track record that the Timberwolves have, I think you should see a decent amount of money continuing to pour on the over. This line has already climbed from 230 all the way to 233 in most spots, but 232.5 is still available on DraftKings at minus 108. So for value alone, I think there's value there, and I think that there is value on this line from anywhere up to roughly 235, give or take. I think this line will continue to climb, but I like the number as the way it is now. So for that reason, the play of the day is going to be on the Miami Heat and Minnesota Timberwolves over 232.5, and that line is available on DraftKings at minus 108. Now looking at the leans for today's card, the leans yesterday were okay. We ended up giving out leans to Denver and to Boston in the NBA. Those both won. Overall, really just wasn't that bad. I know we also leaned to the Kings. They ended up winning and covering. We gave out a lean to the Thunder. Unfortunately, the Bulls ended up outscoring the Thunder by 19 points in the third quarter. Kobe White off the bench, once again, really solid game, had 30-something once again. I might look into him for a player prop in the future, but it's also difficult because Boylan, for some reason with the stubbornness, decides not to actually start him. Makes no sense, But either I'll probably look to a player prop on him in the future because he has scored at least 30 in each of his last 3 games. So, other than that, though, looking at the leans for today's NBA card, I'm going to lean to Brooklyn -2. I know that they lost to Orlando in choke job fashion in their last game, but Washington has gotten at least 53 points from Beal in their last 2 games, and they've lost each of those 2 games. Washington's just an absolute disaster. Brooklyn is in a revenge angle after losing to Washington in the last meeting. I think you should see Brooklyn come out focused to put in a good performance. I think this game will be close, but I think Brooklyn should win by around 5. Lean to the Nets on that one. Other than that, Houston and Memphis, I gave out a lean on my thoughts on that game on the Winners or Winers page, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, I'm going to lean to Boston +4.5. I know they played yesterday, and I know that Utah had the day off, but Utah's lost each of their last 3 games at home to the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Suns. None of those games are really close. I think Boston has a good shot at winning this game outright. They did pretty much coast to the finish line against Portland as they were up double digits for most of the fourth quarter. Even though it's the second of a back-to-back, I think there is value with Boston here on the money line and on the spread, so lean to the Celtics on that one. Now, looking at college basketball, I gave out a play on Villanova St. John's in the Winners or Winers page, so check that one out. Other than that, though, what do I like here? I'm going to lean to Penn State -5 against Rutgers. I know Penn State's on a losing streak, and Rutgers has struggled a bit on the road lately. Penn State is definitely in bounce-back mode. Rutgers, even though they're probably going to make the tournament, they have really struggled on the road in the last week or so. I think Penn State will be very motivated to put in a solid performance to get back on track. Lean to Penn State in front of the home crowd. I think they'll win that game pretty easily. Lean to the Nittany Lions. Other than that, lean to the under between Binghamton and UMBC. UMBC, if you've looked at their last 5 games or so, all of them have pretty much struggled to even break 130. Now the line's at 138.5. Most of that's because the first meeting ended up breaking into the 150s, but I think this game should be a lot more low-scoring. Lean to the under in that one. Other than that, I know that the Citadel and Mercer, I gave out a lean on that for a play on the Winners or Winers page. That line continues to climb. I'm just going to tell you what it is now. I took the over. I got it last night at 153. I got it at 155.5 on DraftKings. It's currently up to 156 pretty much market wide. I believe it's still at 155.5 on DraftKings though, so if you want to get a good line, I would bet that blindly. So I'll lean to the over there. Definitely a lot of line movement. I think that it is warranted. But other than that though, that's pretty much my thoughts for today's college basketball card. Didn't really have time to look at a decent portion of the games, so I'm not going to give you my thoughts on those. Now looking at hockey, I'm going to lean to the Penguins -1.5. The Kings are just terrible. Not really other way to put it. The Penguins made some acquisitions during the trade deadline. They got Connor Sheary back, who I've always been a fan of. He was big for them during their cup runs. They also got extreme, veteran Patrick Marleau. Do I think Marleau's going to have a huge impact? No, but I think he should bring some veteran leadership to the locker room. They didn't really need it because they have so many cup winners. But Marleau is, he's still a solid player. And I think he should be able to provide a bit of a spark for maybe the second unit power play. So keep that in mind. Lean to the Penguins -1.5 there. Other than that, I don't really have any thoughts on the rest of the hockey matchups. Looking at tennis, though, a pretty mediocre day for tennis. We ended up losing with Zverev on the spread. Kwon ended up beating Daniel, which we had. And we also had Lajovic at a plus price beating Steve Johnson, and he ended up winning in 3 sets. So overall, good, not great day. We also had Pair and Cilic over, and that also won. So overall, decent day for tennis. Could have been better, could have been worse, but not really going to complain. Pretty decent day for me, though, as I ended up... I took Zverev to be the runner-up in Mexico, and I got that at plus, I believe it was... What I get it at 600, 650, I think, on Bovada offshore. And Kyrgios ended up retiring in the first round yesterday, so Zverev's pretty much going to take a nap all the way to the semis, hopefully. So hopefully that works out. But either or, looking at the matchups today, what do I like here? I'm going to lean to Wawrinka -1.5 sets against Pedro Martinez. Martinez, pretty solid player, but he's mostly a clay court specialist. Wawrinka had an absolute war against Tiafoe in the first round, which ended up resulting in a third-set tiebreak victory. But Wawrinka had 35 aces and 1 double fault, So he was serving the lights out in that game, in that match, and I know that Martinez isn't a great server. I think you should see Wawrinka pretty much coast to a solid win. Other than that, looking at the other matchups here, I'm going to lean to Carbais Baena against Montero here. I just don't think he should be a plus 138. I know that match should be relatively close. I think that just based on how Clay matches up, you tend to have a decent amount of long three-set matches, especially when both the players aren't considered to be very good servers. Montero's a decent server, but he does have the tendency to force a decent amount of shots and have a decent amount of unforced errors. I think Baena should win at least one set, and I think he could turn that match into a potential three-set thriller. So for me, I'll lean to the underdog there. I'll take the plus 138, and I think that match should turn into a bit of a dogfight. Other than that, though, I'm going to lean to... what else do I like here? I'm going to lean to Londero to beat Seboth in that one. Londero absolutely just smacked his last opponent in Korea in his last match. I think you should see Londero put together a nice performance in this one. So for me, lean to Londero on that one. The spread's a little bit high, but I would lean to the spread. I think that he's just the better clay court player. Other than that, though, not really a big fan of anything else. Interesting match, though, with Felix against Edmund. I know Felix has been bet up to roughly plus 140 after opening up at plus 121. A lot of that has to do with fatigue. He made it to back-to-back finals in tournaments, so he has had a lot of matches over the last couple of weeks where Edmund has been relatively under the radar. Edmund did win in New York, but he has not really played many matches since. I would have to lean to Felix, at least with the over. I just think 140 is a bit too high of a price for the 19th ranked player in the country, give or take. Edmund's very good. I've always been a fan of Edmund, but I do think that Felix does possess the offensive firepower to cause Edmund some problems. I think you should see that match go 3. I'd lean to the over. I would lean to Felix on the money line just based on value. But based on that, though, I do think Edmund could win, but I think that value is on Felix on that one. But other than that, though, those are my thoughts on tennis. Play today, once again, is going to be on the Heat and Timberwolves over 232.5, and that one is available on DraftKings at minus 108. That's going to be the installment of Scott Selections here for Wednesday, February 26th. Good luck to all of you and our respective bets today. Bye, everyone.